ones. So let's start with this. Probably what the news as of now. Well, on the night of 27th February, the Russians attacked one of the installations in Khmelnytsky region. The personnel of the State Emergency Service went on a mission to mitigate the aftermath of the strike, and on that very moment our guys just got attacked, ended up under a strike. One of our persons died, and just now we've got the news of a death of another rescuer in the hospital. I want to say that since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Russian Federation, 64 rescuers died and more than 190 were injured. And it happens very frequently, so that pyrotechnics and firefighters die in course of mitigating the aftermath of Russian aggression, and they get under the strike. However, all around the world the rescuers are protected by all the international conventions, and they don't carry weapons, and they do everything. They fulfill their duties for the sake of other people to rescue their lives, but Russians don't really care about that. They strike wherever they can, just randomly, including civilian installations, civilian facilities. Well, now the rescuers are one of the most demanded professions in Ukraine, and at the same time we know that our rescue mission was just back from Turkey where we were supporting our partners in mitigating of the consequences of a horrible tragedy that happened there after the earthquake. I know that you were a part of that mission. Can you please give us a few comments in that regard? How did we manage to support our partners to help them? Well, the mission was pretty complicated and very big scale, and maybe it was the first time when Ukraine takes part in the mission of that scale, because the earthquakes like that happen maybe once in 100 years, and there were more than 100 countries taking part in mitigating the consequences of the earthquake. I will tell you a little bit about the chronology. On the 6th of February, an earthquake of 6.8 and 7.8 magnitude happened in Turkey, and the government of Turkey addressed the international community for support with rescue teams for search and rescue of those survived. Ukraine got the notification from North Atlantic Center for Reacting for Catastrophes around 7 o'clock next morning, and the president of Ukraine instantly issued a resolution on forwarding the support mission to Turkey, and the State Security Service of Ukraine started drawing up together the a rescue team for sending them to Turkey in fulfillment of the resolution of the government to mitigate the consequences of the earthquake. The State Emergency Service created the rescue team in amount of 80 people and 16 vehicles. The team included the rescuers of the State Mobile Rescue Center, who was certified by the INSARASTA system, the International Rescue Services system, which has its protocols and procedures. Our personnel was attested and certified, so we were able to send the people to Turkey for the mitigation of the earthquake consequences. The march was combined. One part of the team was getting to Turkey with an airplane, 25 people, including K9 unit, and the rest of them were going by land with the 16 vehicles. from Kiev, Odessa, through the territory of Moldova, to Bulgaria, Turkey, and the total distance was about 3,000 kilometers. It was the first time when Ukraine was sending special heavy vehicles for rescue and for search and rescue operations and clearing the debris. Within the first day, our first team arrived with an airplane and had consultations with an extraordinary Directorate of Turkish Republic for the identification of the districts where the Ukrainian rescue teams would work. There was a coordination with UCC Center of International Teams. So this center is being built when many international teams work together, and the INSARAG system identifies certain centers for coordination of rescue teams in different sectors. Our sector was the city of Antakya, and we did a number of sectors. We were receiving different sectors every day to organize proper work and don't overlap the work of other teams. We had a spot allocated for basic camp. It was located in the distance of 2.5 kilometers from the city of Antakya. The camps of 14 more countries were located near us, like Georgia, Netherlands, India, Spain, Argentina, Australia, Indonesia, and others. I would like to mention also that the camp was provided with all the basic requirements and compliance with the INSARAG system. The way was pretty difficult. The Ukrainian rescuers in the first 25 persons arrived on spot and deployed completely autonomous rescue camp, which had everything necessary for autonomous operation, including temps, heating devices, generators, shower cabins. Well, there was even a laundry machine, and so on and so forth. There was a field kitchen, so we could properly operate, do our job, go on missions, and come back for rest according to the shift schedule. On the 8th of February, the first group started the rescue operation. The shifts were lasting 6 hours each. We use special devices for identification of alive people under the debris. So the rescuers were working with the headsets on. Those devices are very sensitive. They can even distinguish the heartbeat under the debris. We were equipped with the telescopic cameras, so we could go in the flaws between the concrete to identify where there are any persons left alive under there. We cooperated with Portugal, Croatia, Romania, Netherlands, Switzerland, who were heading the headquarters of UCC. On the 10th of February, the land convoy arrived and created 2 rescue teams for operation in 2 spots simultaneously. Here I would like to pay attention that the efficiency on the places of operation was proved by our teams, including the K9 units. We were using K9 units extensively, in total 10 of them, for search of people under the debris. The next phase was involvement of heavy engineering vehicles of heavy and medium heavy class, which supported and contributed to the work of our rescuers. Well, with the count of destruction of the automobile roads, we even brought quadricycles and motorcycle transport, which was very convenient to use, and with the help of those vehicles, we easily coordinated our work, and every team included a medic, and local inhabitants were addressing us for medical aid, and 13 people received medical aid from our medical personnel. They had cuts, breaks, bone fractures, including leg fractures, so our medics did a great job, and we want to thank them for that. We actively used the drones for reconnaissance during search of the territory and work in the sectors to identify the spots and the condition of the destroyed buildings. Also, there was marking in compliance with the international system used by INSARAG, so that we could mark the spots where we already completed our job. And when, for example, the other team from a different country, like Netherlands, comes to that spot, they already see that this or that building is already searched, and if Holland and Portugal, they use their marking, it's still being clearly understood because it's in compliance with the international standards, so that we understand each other. In this regard, we were constantly in touch with the headquarters of UCC. There were daily briefings at 8 o'clock in the morning and at 9 o'clock in the evening to summarize with the headquarters of UCC in Sarak the state of the works completed and to identify the tasks for the next day. On the ninth day, we found and rescued a woman. Two of our rescuers, Sergei Onishenko and Roman Lobachev, they got on the pile of debris and they've heard a sound which similar to moaning. We announced a minute of silence. Well, it is done in compliance with international standards to identify whether there are people under the debris. So there was a K9 team engaged. that dog's nickname was Ninja. Olga Novikova, the member of the rescue of the K9 team, she got to the place where a person could possibly be, and the rescuers started working there with the use of the special tools like hydraulic scissors, jacks. So they got to that woman, pulled her from under the debris. There was a lot of Turkish volunteers working nearby, so we put that woman on a stretcher and brought her to the ambulance vehicle. Well, our personnel was working very professionally, in a very coordinated, very well coordinated manner, and the Turkish were really pleasantly surprised because on the 9th day of mitigation of the consequences of the earthquake, well, for that woman to survive on the 9th day, she was about 30 years old. So imagine how she survived that without water and with the temperature shifts from plus 15 to minus 5. So she made it. And you know, when we pulled her from under the debris, she was conscious. She was showing signs of life, and she had no severe damage. Well, this is what our medics said. And then the Turkish medics worked with her, so she made it alive. Well, generally from 8th to 17th of February, our team rescued one person, that woman specifically. We deblocked the bodies of 58 dead persons, including 9 children. We searched 454 buildings, cleared the debris of 136 buildings, and provided medical help to 18 people, including 1 child. I would like to mention that all the rescue tasks, all the works identified by International Coalition Center were fulfilled by our team in a very professional manner. I want to mention that many international colleagues visited us, like from Portugal, India, Turkey, and they were surprised. First of all, they were asking, like, guys, how is it going? You come from the war, how is it there? And they were proud to be visiting us. They were taking pictures with our people. We didn't have enough patches. We were exchanging them. We ran out of Ukrainian flag patches. It was an honor for them to pick our sleeve patch, and all the countries supported as well. I mean, civilized countries. Thanks God the Russians were more than 100 kilometers from us, and we've never seen them. And even in case we would have seen them, we probably would have talked to them and just do our job. And the Turkish people, when we were passing by, our guys were on the brink of breaking out in tears, because everybody was applauding, everybody was thanking us, hugging us, coming to us and saying that we are very proud because your country is going through difficult times and you still find this opportunity to come and help us. Well, it's a horrible tragedy. Looking at all those pictures, we can only imagine the scale of this tragedy, and our rescuers have seen a lot of difficult damage and complicated destruction during this war. So what have you been impressed with in view of the fact that you constantly visit places like that with a lot of destruction? What have you impressed with? What have you been impressed with? Well, it was what I've been impressed was the scale of destruction within such a short period. According to the last information, more than 50,000 people died in Turkey and Syria. Everything happened within 100 seconds. It's just a moment, but the scale is terrific, and the nature of destruction, they are of different nature. They look different than those buildings destroyed by the shells in Ukraine. For example, there are bent buildings, or the buildings just crunching apart, and a lot of people, a lot of sorrow concentrated in one single spot, and this is the most difficult part of it, because in view of all those hot spots where I was going out to on missions, and it's like a whole city just erased from the face of earth. Well, not erased, but completely destroyed, and many people left with a lot of sorrow, without their property, without their closed ones. We have a video, we have a footage of this mission. I'm asking a technical team to bring it to the screen, and then we will proceed to Q&A session. Yeah, you see there are markings over there on the wall. So those the markings, and here are the pieces of equipment I mentioned, the geophones. We were listening to the basements, and when a building is being destroyed, it looks like it's bent a little bit to the side, so there's a moment of silence. We check whether there are people under the debris. We had interpreters with our team. We were working during nighttime too. So now it's our guys who are going to work with the telescopic cameras. So they dive into cavities to search the cavities to see whether there are any people left there. It's not the most difficult district we worked at. There are more private residences, and we found that woman in the most difficult sector. This is just to demonstrate the equipment our personnel was working with to find the survivors. And yeah, you could witness the work of the K9 units. All of dogs in K9 units are trained to find the survivors. Dear colleagues, your questions. Rakuta Anastasia, Ukrinform. Did our rescuers suffer any injuries while working in Turkey? And was there a decision by the head of state emergency service for sending another team of rescuers to Turkey? And maybe during the mission, were there any agreements, new agreements on cooperation in different areas with the equivalent services of other countries? And if so, what were the agreements? No, there were no injuries in our personnel, but they could happen due to the shocks that we were feeling even in the basic camp where we were staying. And during the work of our personnel in the buildings, I had this case when I was working as the press officer. Each international team should include a press officer in compliance with the requirements of INSARAG. We were working with Reuters, and Reuters came too close to a building, and during our work there, the shocks began again in that building. I pulled that girl from Reuters, I pulled her by the hand, and I took her away from the building. I gave a signal for evacuation to our guys, for a prompt evacuation, and there was a number of safety officers present in the group. So there are special pieces of equipment which document the deviation of the building from the standard, and if there is a signal, everybody should be evacuated. The signal is actually a whistle, and in our basic camp we were seeing our vehicles just jumping on the ground after the shocks. Well, you can see it's like a playing a piano. It feels kind of unpleasant, well, putting it in diplomatic terms, and you can see your tent shaking. So yes, we could suffer some injuries, and thanks God we did not. And there was a lot of safety measures taken with regard to the work of our personnel. And as to the agreements, yes, we had meetings with Directorate of Emergency Situations with, but unfortunately we didn't have some big meetings because more than 100 working teams were working, and the headquarters were dealing with the mitigation of this emergency. And in fact we didn't have a lot of time to plan anything ahead. Yes, the people were coming to us, checking out our vehicles. We have good friendship with the rescuers of Turkey, but we had no time to plan for some long-term perspective there because both us and them had a lot of work there. We were only meeting for the working questions, for provision of necessary support, and discussing what had to be done. Mr. Alexander, this weekend there was a fire in Kiev, and if you may, a few words about putting out that fire. And we've seen the robotic vehicles being engaged in putting out this fire. So to what extent did they help? How efficient were them? Yes, there was really a big fire in Kiev, about 2:30 in the street of Kirillivska, 86 Kirillivska Street, Podilsky district. The lacquering agents and painting materials storage caught fire. Well, they are easily flammable and to a certain extent explosible. The fire spread to the area of around 2,000 square meters, and immediately the B-scale fire was announced, and given the big temperature which is being emitted due to the burning of the painting materials, and people cannot really get close to given that high temperature, so we had to use the robots which were transferred to us by Germany. So we connected the water sleeves to them. So there were people involved in this operation too, but we used that robot, which proved its efficiency in putting out that fire, and obviously we will be using this kind of equipment, and we are already using it not only for putting out the fire, but for demining of areas. I mean the material working in Kharkiv region and Kherson region now. So they are both the robots like that and the demining vehicles. So in fact, those are robots too, because they can remotely demine the territories, well, large areas in a pretty steady and fast way. So the robotics, I mean the upgrade in this field is going on continuously, and we thank the support of our international partners who provide us with this machinery that we keep using. And while in Turkey, I have to say that the technical level of our machinery was on par with our international partners, and sometimes even better. So we keep upgrading our equipment for more efficient reaction for different situations, including Russian aggression and other emergency situations. Thank you for all this information, for this report. Joining us was Oleksandr Khorunzhiy, the press officer of the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. Our next briefing is at 12:30. We will have the presentation of the photo exhibition, Russia Terrorist State, and we continue working for our victory, and glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes.
Слушай, если оно появилось...